in person.
Yeah.
Exchanged emails.
We definitely exchanged a lot of emails.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Do you prefer us to sing in some order?
Absolutely not. As you and I can speak to them. This is freedom of expression.
1, 2, 3. Yes. 1, 2, 3.
Doors are closed. Good morning, dear guests. My name is Lutz Kinkel. I'm the Managing Director of ECPMF, the organizer of this conference. Welcome to this panel, which is the last panel of the conference. Outside we have a beautiful and sunny day, but we had to shut down the blinds because of the live streaming into the internet. I hope you enjoy the panel. The panel is about the sustainability of support. We touched upon this topic several times already during this conference, but now we want to discuss that again. The question is, which support for Ukraine has a long-lasting effect, not only for today, but also for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow? I have a row of distinguished guests and speakers sitting here with me at the panel, and I would like to introduce them. The first one is Lisa Besushko. She's a campaign and communications manager for the Global Forum for Media and Development. When starting her career, she worked as a journalist in Ukraine. She's also a member of the National Union of Journalists in Ukraine, which is headed by Sergei Timolenko, who's sitting just right over here. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Welcome. Good morning.
With me is Olga Simanovic. I hope I pronounced that right. She used to be a journalist, screenwriter, and managing editor for Ukrainian television. For 5 years now, she works as a regional editor for the Global Investigative Journalism Network. Welcome, Olga.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
And with us is Olha. Everybody knows her already because she did the day moderation yesterday, and of course she's known among Ukrainians very well. She's the Chief Executive Director at the Lviv Media Forum. She worked for 5 years as a head of projects at the Center for Media Excellence at the School of Journalism of the Ukrainian Catholic University before. Welcome, Olha.
Thank you. Nice to see you here, and to be a part of this panel.
Please allow me to start with a short look back. I think we all know where we were at the 24th of February 2022. Somehow it's in the memory like 9/11, right? I had been sitting remotely at a panel which was called the High-Level Dialogue between the UN and the EU. And everybody was in the room, so civil society, politicians, and, well, let's say, the most influential people within the media sector. And we were talking about the protection of journalists, but only a very few people talked about the protection of journalists in Ukraine. That means nobody was really prepared for this full-scale invasion and for the complete change of the conditions in Ukraine. This changed in the upcoming months. One expression of the change was GFMD's Perugia Declaration, which was signed by 119 civil society organizations, and which was already an outstanding example of the fantastic coordination that GFMD is delivering. But the Perugia Declaration promised a holistic support for Ukrainian journalists, and a powerful support. Lisa, in Germany you would say Hand aufs Herz. That means let's be honest and probably also self-critical. Did we deliver what we promised in the Perugia Declaration. What is your impression?
Thank you very much, Lutz, and for your kind words about the Perugia Declaration for Ukraine. Actually, yeah, just a bit of a background. Since the first GFMD's first information sharing and coordination meeting took 48 hours after the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine in February last year, and we started as this crisis emergency response and then moved to key thematic areas and focused on thematic issues, resulting in briefings for our donors. And I would say that the Perugia Declaration that was launched originally in April last year at the International Journalism Festival and was signed by 219 international media organizations would serve as a great sign of our solidarity and how our media and media development community stand together for supporting Ukrainian media and journalists. And I would say, on behalf of GFMD, we really found out from the experience of our members and partners, and also from our own experience, dealing with the coordination of media support in previous crises and emergencies, that coordination, I think I already talked about it at the previous session during the campus before the conference, that coordination is really crucial, and this Perugia Declaration for Ukraine was a really inspiring sign that when we can achieve more if we work together, and we can achieve more in less time. So as you said about this holistic approach in terms of Ukrainian media support that Perugia Declaration for Ukraine promised, we used it as GFMD and also as our community starting from our regular information sharing meetings, and then later in all of our advocacy efforts around it. We started using it starting from the high level session about the safety of journalists of Ukraine at UNESCO during the World Press Freedom Day, and then used it in all our advocacy efforts ever since, encouraging all of our members and partners to using it as well. And I would say that it was a great achievement to start seeing the practical results of it, starting from advocacy and then moving to, one of the practical results with it was the creation of emergency energy briefing and the solidarity around it, and the joint efforts that we used in terms of procuring and delivering emergency energy equipment, and then moving to and advocating for donors for continuing, funding for energy equipment and heaters and internet access to those areas that needed it the most. And then also personal protective equipment and relocation of journalists within Ukraine and outside of Ukraine. Those were also the results of the coordination of our efforts as media and media support community. And I would say that Perugia Declaration that called for different kind of actors, starting from international media and then public and private donors of independent media and journalism in Ukraine. We're really proud, and of course there's a lot of room for improvement, but it's really inspiring to see how our advocacy efforts turned into some practical support for Ukrainian media, and we definitely will continue to using it in our future advocacy efforts in supporting independent media and journalists.
Excellent. Lisa, from the perspective of a civil society organization, we all rely a little bit on the work of a GFMD. GFMD is taking this leading role in coordination. The question is, will you do that now forever? Will you do that now for the next 10 years? Or do you have plans to say, okay, we do that another 1 year or probably 2 years, and then we hand over this coordination function probably to another institution inside Ukraine, or something like that? Because, well, I have the feeling in the moment you are some kind of institution, and we all rely a little bit on you, but we don't think that much about the future. So do you have already any plans that you can tell us about?
I would say that, and thank you, we really feel this responsibility in terms of, coordinating the support for Ukrainian media and journalists. And we started, as already said, as crisis response, and then moved to more thematic issues that were signaled to us by our Ukrainian partners. And for now, I would say one of the results of our long-term thinking about it is a white paper that I may probably talk about it a bit later on long-term financial support for Ukrainian media and journalists. And I would say that in that regard, it was also actually inspired by our discussion with Joanna Kravchik that had participated in the session yesterday at the conference, and the German Marshall Fund of the United States that are considering long-term support and thinking about the creating of this innovative, very specific mechanism for for keep Ukrainian media, independent media and journalists going. So at the moment, I think GFMD, we are a network of these journalism support and media development organizations. We don't have funds ourselves, so we can't promise the direct financial support from GFMD. But for now, I would say that we will use this white paper that was launched just recently in October for continuing our advocacy, focusing on really thematic areas, as we started with providing psychological support for Ukrainian journalists, which was mentioned earlier at the conference, which is a really important issue, and then focusing on prioritizing local media and a lot of issues that we will also reach out to donors and funders community about it. So those are our long-term plans at the moment.
Thank you so much. Olha, how does it look from the other side? It's not only that GFMD is coordinating, but of course you are also coordinating. I was listening to a speech that was broadcasted by you in the web, and during this speech you said you have always to prepare yourself for war, but you will never be ready. When did you actually start to prepare for the war? Was it already in 2014 that you had an expectation that there will be one day something like a full-scale invasion and that you have to prepare for this situation? Was that the case, or was it different?
Oh, absolutely not. Actually, when going back in my mind to 2014, when the war started, I remember myself of a fact that people even didn't call the war a war. And once I was sitting with my friend. It was July 2014. He's a journalist, and I said, "The war we are at now," and he looked at me like, "Do you call it a war?" Because the normal words for this were like anti-terrorist operation or a special operation or so, and it took us some time to get used to the word war, a war, when describing what's going on, especially after Donetsk airport collapsed. People started calling it a war. But it was inside Ukraine, and I have a feeling that outside Ukraine still it didn't look like this. Ukrainians felt it when actually talking about journalists got slowly used to having to accepting the fact that we are having a war, and they started to cover it as a war a bit later, because the first journalists who covered the war at that time were Ukrainians who worked for foreign media agencies, for example, Reuters. Reuters team, who these are brilliant Ukrainian media professionals. They started to cover the war atrocities since 2014. But then Ukrainian journalists try also to be involved in this work. But when talking about the full-scale invasion, for most people, it was obvious that something will happen. Like we as a team have developed an emergency plan for the full-scale invasion in January and contacted all the partners and donors and shared with them our plan, but some of them, especially those who are working for Western institutions, they said, okay, but this will never happen. I said, okay, so let's have the plan B, which will never be launched. And yeah, actually it helped us a lot early in the morning on the 24th of February to react immediately, because we primarily saw our organization as a platform for journalists to be hosted, I mean journalists from the war-affected zones to be hosted. We just realized that Lviv is the city where our office is based, is located 70 kilometers close to the NATO border, and Lviv in that case would be one of the last cities to be taken in the worst scenario. That's why, like, we launched this plan and we helped, like, we announced the support program to journalists and their family members early in the morning on the 24th of February.
There was, and we discussed it already, there was a huge wave also of solidarity after the full-scale invasion. Was the support that was delivered to Ukraine as targeted and as efficient as you think it should have been? What is your balance sheet of the first months?
When talking actually about the first month, I think we did our best. I mean, when saying we, I mean both Ukrainian media support NGOs and foreign donors, foreign agents. And the first reaction was quite successful. It means that all the quality media that used to work in Ukraine at that time, they resisted, they continued their work. They didn't stop working. I mean also that those who fled from the war-affected zones were hosted. The problem at that time was with the personal protective equipment, and the problem remained huge till maybe August 2022. But you know, later on, when we had to switch from this emergency reaction to more sustainable solutions, I think that we have like that it could be better, you know. Sometimes it's a lack of coordination. Sometimes there's a lack of opportunity to react immediately to some needs which arise, as it was, for example, with heavy shellings of the energy infrastructure. The shelling started in October 2022, but the first solutions came in late November, I think. So sometimes we have to be more efficient in risk assessment, and sometimes we have to be more efficient in coordination, for sure.
Thank you for this remark. I think when we talk about support for Ukraine, we have to differentiate between three elements. One is the emergency support that you already mentioned, and Lisa mentioned it. It's, for example, relocation. It's, for example, personal protective equipment, working stipends, and so on and so forth. Second is, and that is probably even more important for the future of Ukraine, is media development. This is about business models, community building, and the framework of the future media system, of course. And last not least, I think we have to talk about advocacy also to keep Ukraine on the top of the political agenda. Because if we don't have Ukraine on the top of the political agenda, then also the donors will probably not be as willing to give donations as they do right now. One element that is crucial also for the future of Ukraine is, of course, education of journalists, and that's important for the sustainable development of quality journalism. How do you perceive in the moment the current education system for Ukrainian journalists?
Okay, it's actually a tough question. I used to work at the School of Journalism, which was a master's program for those who have already bachelor's degree, mostly in other fields. And from my perspective, it is the best way to teach journalists, as you have already some background and some specific expertise. You are ready to find out, to learn how to cover like the developments or how to cover those issues. We have two schools of journalism in Ukraine that are working like this. Kyiv-Mohyla School of Journalism and Uku School of Journalism. And I think that this is something that is a great solution for the media education system in Ukraine. It also means that a journalist could be trained within 1.5 or 2 years, which is quite good amount of time to get the general knowledge and to understand how to be successful and efficient in the profession. On the other hand, like the journalist education system is a part of the whole education system. And there's nothing special about journalism education in it. I think that the whole education system should be reformed as soon as possible. We now, I mean, the media sector faces a huge lack of high quality professionals. Like we have this gap, we are struggling to find employees. And the solution for this, which I see and promote among the sector, is to build an education system for adults. There are millions of people in Ukraine who are looking for jobs. There are millions of organizations who are looking for people, for professionals. And the gap between these two groups is a skill set. The people who are looking for a job don't have the proper skill set that is needed to start a position in a particular organization. And this is what not only media, but the whole NGO sector, the governmental sector, but also businesses face. And this should be, in my opinion, an integral part of the Ukraine's recovery plan, to build an efficient education system for adults, which will give the opportunity to those who want to change their professional path, but also those who need to be reintegrated in the society, the IDPs, the veterans, like other job seekers, to get new positions and to be reintegrated, to get back to active work in the desired field.
Thank you. Olga, you are working with a GIJN. You are one of the organizations also offering education and also offering resources to get educated. I know that you have really something like a huge database with resources, and this database is for free. So everybody can read it and can read the resources. Could you walk us, please, through the offers that you make as GIJN? Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the floor. And I would like to talk Ukrainian. I hope it's not a problem for our translator to change channels. And please, English speakers, I have one garniture if anybody needs. Отже, ми вже
At GIJN, we do not usually give grants directly ourselves. It's just like in that saying, it's better to give a fishing rod and teach one to go fishing than just serve a fish on the plate. And in fact, our colleagues, our foreign colleagues, seem to be better informed about this possibility of large-scale invasion to begin against Ukraine, and we have had some early experiences with Afghanistan. So in January, we already had a checklist ready, which documents had to be prepared. So if people will have to leave their homes and to leave their country abroad, if they were to go abroad and find jobs elsewhere and to organize their lives. So we have a checklist of documents necessary to travel and checklist of things that had to be done in advance so as to execute a Plan B in the case of emergency. So we prepared a checklist of how to prepare your families and your editorial. We have translated that checklist into the Ukrainian and Russian languages, and in cooperation with our partners, we developed yet another checklist for the equipment that had to be taken, and how to, and also additional information on how to cross the border. And we also have prepared some information on how to secure information and how to act safely. And we started getting in touch with the members of our network, and we started asking them about their donor organizations. We started distributing all those checklists and guidelines, and we were saying that it was necessary to develop a plan B. Everyone was looking at us as if we were crazy, as if we went mad. Nonetheless, we were adamant that it was necessary to draft a plan B in the case of emergency, for the case of emergency, and we started talking to donor organizations whether they would be ready to finance any emergency actions. All of that eventually came very handy when the full-scale invasion of Ukraine started. Eventually, our colleagues acted accordingly, and they were well received by our colleagues. Entire families were moved out of the danger zones. Entire families had the possibilities to move out, to find new places to live, new jobs. There was a lot of information also going on from Ukraine, and therefore our colleagues, journalists, had a possibility of doing their journalistic assignments, so they still could provide their listeners, audience, and readership with information. So these people still had a possibility to go to a newsroom and do their job. We also understood that we didn't really have an updated guide on investigation of war crimes, because the guide that we had was already a 10-year-old guide, and the tactics has changed, legislation has changed, and we understood that we needed a new guide on investigating war crimes.
So we got lawyers involved, war correspondents, war reporters, investigators who investigated war crimes, who had experience of working at court proceedings, and doing that we found some other perpetrators, potential criminals, just perpetrators, not known yet, but thanks to this journalism work, we managed to identify those individuals and bring them to responsibility, accountability. We have an excellent editorial board of this guidance. Whoever who is not subscribed yet, and please visit our website. We started translating it into Ukrainian. It's being translated. It's already in English. You can download it in chapters. And it's specifically on different areas of investigation, starting from making use of open sources for war crimes investigations, how to archive documents, to archive evidence, how to document and interview witnesses in such a way for this information would be available, acceptable by courts as well as evidence, not only just be a product of your journalism material. So certainly you should start with identifying, understanding what is a war crime and what is not, because we're kind of freely using it, these terms. We call it genocide, crimes against humanities, and I urge you to look into our chapter, which describes what is legal, what is lawful during the war times, and where we're trying to be as simple as possible, just presenting war habits, rules of war, etc. Not even all lawyers are aware of all this in such a detail. So we got all the team involved to get this, prepare this brief for all, in order for all journalists to be able to operate this manual to define what is a crime or not. Not always attacking civilians is considered to be a crime. On top of that, we have some quite a lot of resources which could help you build new business models, because we're gathering this experience from globally, all kind of innovations, and in this respect as well, including fundraising, developing new business models and organizational development for editorial offices. You will be able to learn from other colleagues' experience, for example, on working on a membership model, a subscription model. As soon as people in Ukraine don't really have much funds, and they were trying to donate the funds to the front line, as media would quite often is the last one to get funding, and I would suggest to you to get in partnership with some Western organization and to point your attention to Western audiences. Work with the foreign partners, translate your materials in English. In this way, you will be able to reach an audience who actually have funds and they are ready to pay for a quality journalism content and who are following the events in Ukraine. If it is a quality product endorsed by the media they know in the West, then you have a new opportunity opening for you. We have 240 partnership organizations all over the world. We have a huge email subscription group and email data bank. You could contact with the partners in 150 countries, and we have a JJ Women, a special group for female investigative journalists, who they also work on their strategies for further survival in the profession, and how to be successful in the professions, and to introduce some mechanisms which finally would lead to gender balance in the newsroom. We have both online groups and discussion groups, and where female journalists share their issues and how they overcome the issues in the profession. And naturally, also we had a conference this year where we invited almost 100 journalists from Ukraine. We managed to get scholarships and grants for them to support them financially in this participation. The Ukrainian group was probably the largest one at the conference, among 1,200 from 140 people altogether, and I believe that our colleagues had an opportunity to share the experience, and in the nearest future we'll have a webinar on investigating war crimes. We do these small events in order to share the experience. Please join to this this webinar. It will be Ukrainian interpretation provided as well.
Thank you, Olga. That's really impressive, and that's really absolutely useful. And that's even more useful because I have the impression that also in the West there is a lack of systematic education on crisis journalism and journalism during war times. Olga, you already mentioned the relation between quality journalism and donors. I would like to come to Olga and her speech again, because you mentioned in your speech the side effects that the war has on the media system. And you mentioned 3 points. The first point was that the war enforced more quality journalism, because quality journalism is the only journalism that is supported by donors. Secondly, you said the war also enforced a new focus on readers and the revenue that comes from readers, and it intensified the dialogue between the media outlet and the audience. And thirdly, you said the war enforced cooperation and collaboration between media outlets, because you have to share capacities concerning transport, personnel, and other things. So do you see that? Do you see an opportunity to also prolong these kind of positive effects in the future? Is this kind of a lesson learned that is deeply rooted now and that points to a new form of the media system in the Ukraine?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's maybe start with finding out why do those effects arise. The war is a situation where the demand for quality information is enormous, but the resources to produce it are very little. And this puts you in as a journalist in a situation where you have to search for new solutions. And actually, this is the point where the newborn media market is arising. And at the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, many Ukrainian media who produced quality journalism, they published their calls to their audiences to support them, and they faced a huge feedback. Like, so many readers donated to their media outlets whom they trusted to make them continue their work in time, like in a situation of war. The consumption of the information, it increased in several times. Sometimes it's like 10 or 20 times more. Like, people were just scrolling their news feeds and looking for quality news that they can trust to. But as the war goes on, the resources go down and down. And I actually was impressed by a case I found in Kharkiv, visiting Kharkiv last year. We discussed with local journalists how, like, what are the circumstances they work in. And they shared with me that they have a lack of opportunities to go to the newly liberated territories and to cover events like what's going on there. And what was their solution is the one outlet that has a car gives its car, another outlet sends its photojournalist, and another pays for fuel, and 3 media outlets go and they collect information from the newly deoccupied territories, and they can, in that way, they can bring their audiences the news. And it is a brilliant case of how we can survive and overcome the challenges of the war, being together and looking for efficient solutions. For sure, the war is a very challenging time. It's both challenging in terms of resources, finances, but it also it uses all the effort, like all the resource, psychological resource, first of all, of those who are covering, who are deeply involved in covering war. You can imagine the state of journalists who are covering events on the front line or documenting war crimes. But it is a time where the community can express their support and their solidarity with the colleagues who are working in such tough circumstances. And from this point of view, I think that the situation, as I mentioned, where we have lack of resources, but a huge demand, will lead us to new efficient solutions in the media market. Not all the media outlets will survive this time, for sure. But what we work for, I mean our team, our goal is to have a vibrant, quality, efficient, sustainable media and competitive media market at the end. And the opportunities we have in this time, it's our responsibility to use them and to get these results at the end.
Let's have a look a bit at the big picture. Sergei Timolenko mentioned in a discussion that we had before that he thinks that there is a lack of strategic thinking concerning the media system of the future in Ukraine. There is obviously an appetite for a vision, and there's also an appetite for a roadmap that could be rolled out to reach this vision. Do you have an idea what kind of formats would be helpful to develop a vision and a roadmap? And how can we as civil society organizations support that?
Yeah, it's an interesting and very holistic question. What can lead us to a strategic vision? You know, strategic vision begins with critical thinking, for me. And critical thinking means accepting the reality. From what I see, sometimes we just lack this opportunity to accept the tough reality when being inside the work conditions. We at Lviv Media Forum have transformed our support program for media as it was like as I mentioned, early in the morning on the 24th of February last year, we launched an emergency support program targeted on emergency needs of journalists. But at the end of the last year, we got together and decided to stop those efforts and to transform it into a strategic support program, which means to support those who are already capable to increase their impact on the audiences, to get to help them develop new strategic vision, but we just understood that not all the media outlets will be able to do this. So when you are asking me what is needed to develop this strategic vision, my first answer would be to accept that reality is very tough and challenging, that we lack resources, and we have to sacrifice something for something. If we want to have this competitive and vibrant media market, we also have to accept that not all the media outlets would be the part of it. Because this lack of resources won't give us this opportunity.
Lisa G. FMD already developed a white paper on the future of Ukraine's media. Could you talk us, please, briefly through this white paper and the main elements? One main element is, for instance, to give local and hyperlocal media a long-term support. Why do you put this so much in the foreground? Why is that so important from your perspective?
Thank you, Lutz. If I can also share the slide. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. Yes, exactly, perfect. So just a few words about our white paper. It was crafted jointly with Ukrainian media organizations and support entities, and at their request, and together with the ECPMF and GIGN and Lviv Media Forum and many other GFMD members and partners. It was our collaborative effort to appeal to donors and policymakers for long-term financial support for Ukrainian journalists and media. And as you already said, we focus on this long-term strategy in terms of addressing various critical aspects of the media landscape. We try to aim to ensure that the independence, sustainability, and effectiveness of Ukrainian media over the next 5 to 10 years. And as we already said about the importance of, I think Olga already said, the importance of independent media in Ukraine being financially independent, helping them to develop monetization system and helping them to learn how to, and also as Olga said, to navigate and not just to develop mechanisms on how to survive in a post-war. And talking about local media, exactly, one of the main issues of the white paper is prioritizing local level media and the importance of it, because actually local media in Ukraine, they play a very important role. They provide context-specific coverage during the war. They promote transparency on the grassroots levels, and especially their role will be even more important is in post-war reconstruction and recovery, what we're talking about here at the conference. And I think in a recent report from a National Union of Journalists of Ukraine about frontline local media, it says that around 60% of local media, they don't have funds for paying wages and taxes, and that's still a really relevant issue. And that's why we really think it's important to appeal to donors and policymakers that local media need to be prioritized. And we actually asked our Ukrainian members and partners to share the white paper with their network, with their respective networks, and it was signed by around 25 Ukrainian media organizations, and around almost 20 of them were small regional and local Ukrainian media, and for us it's a really inspiring sign of of their support and the relevance of our collaborative efforts in this regard. So yeah, on the website you can see the QR code that will lead you to the white paper. You will find it at our website. So that's the document that we will use in our future advocacy efforts, advocating to this whole, as we already said, holistic approach in terms of how to plan our financial support, and also promoting media literacy and thinking about some specific and innovative funding mechanism. Also, as I already mentioned about the German Marshall Fund of the United States, as they said, the importance of the long-term planning of financial support for international donors and funders community in terms of Ukraine media support. So those are a few of the points that we mention and try to collaboratively advocate for thinking in a longer term of how we can help our Ukrainian colleagues in a post-war recovery and reconstruction.
Thank you very much. Lisa, you also have something new in your pocket, which is the Tech and Journalism Crisis and Emergency Mechanism. Yes. We will come back to that. We will also have a signing procedure. But first of all, I would give you the opportunity to ask questions to our panelists. Sergey will be there to hand you the microphone. Any kind of questions?
Thank you, Anastasia Perez from Satrisk. I will have a question to Lisa and to Lutz. Right now, in Ukraine, we are at the stage when we are considering all scenarios, including the worst case scenarios. Now, the question is the following. I have been very attentively following this conference and how we see the future of Ukrainian journalism. But do you and your organizations think about a situation, maybe it's not public information, but some of our journalists present here in this room, some of them might go to the army. Some of them will be forced to go abroad to European countries because their cities may be occupied. So all those scenarios need to be taken into consideration as well. And we see that the governments are no longer eager to support Ukrainians as it was in 2022. So do you take into consideration the worst case scenarios? Have you considered options when Ukrainian journalists will have to go abroad if the situation deteriorates in Ukraine?
This question, it's really relevant, and of course, as a media support and media development community, we've been thinking about it and worrying a lot about the consistency of the support for Ukrainian media and journalists. And of course, as we've seen from our regular information sharing and coordinating meetings, of course, unfortunately, there are a bit less of opportunities for short-term support and immediate grants that will help keep Ukrainian media going. So that's definitely an issue, and we see this tendency and a bit of losing the focus on immediate support for Ukrainian media. But of course, as we said, and as our white paper advocates for, our work is really remind about the importance of what Ukrainian journalists are doing and helping with this long-term planning. So shifting from this short-term emergency immediate support to a long-term financial support and long-term how to help Ukrainian media navigate in this changing media landscape, how to develop new strategies, how to collaborate with international partners, how to create this network and relationships with the international media, how to explore collaboration with international media support communities so they will get to know you and explore how they can help you. So our work is just to while navigating in this complicated landscape, just to keep going, keep telling about it, about the importance of what Ukrainian independent media and journalists are doing, the importance of their covering the war, and the importance of how to international donors and funders community can support them. So we definitely see this issue, and we really encourage our community to think in a longer term of how to help media become financially independent and navigate better in post-war. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think you're absolutely right. We are following the positive scenario, of course, and the positive scenario is that Ukraine will be liberated, and we are thinking about the future of the Ukrainian media market. We are not thinking about that Ukraine might be occupied and might lose the war. What I can say is that we already have resources for relocating, of course, journalists. A lot of female Ukrainian journalists have been in Leipzig and had joined the journalist in residence program that the ECPMF is running. We are not the only organization that is running relocation programs. There are also several others. That's one thing. The other thing is that there is already a structure set up in Germany for exile media. That is the JX Fund. The JX Fund is mainly, or was founded by Reporters Without Borders, and they systematically support exile media. So in case one day you have to run something like Ukrainian exile media, which is not the case in the moment, but probably this is at one day, there is a support structure already implemented. But I think, to be honest, what I can also see is that the state budget is getting tighter and tighter because of several reasons, because of the economic development in Germany, and that means that the resources are not endless. So we have to deal with limited resources and we will do whatever we can. There was another question.
Yes. Мене звуть Тетяна.
Hello, my name is Tatiana Kaushan. I represent a small local media outlet in the border area. Now we are talking about future vision of the development of the mass media. We understand that it is very important to treat our small media local organizations as profitable business organizations. But are there in Europe good examples of the state supporting local media? There may be state programs, or maybe there are unions of journalists in other countries who are supporting local media effectively. Do you have some good examples? Because we will need such support not only after the war is over. We actually need this kind of support already now as the war is going on. Thank you.
Of course, I could say a few words about that. And thank you very much for this question, because we also think that local journalism and hyperlocal journalism is a big and super important topic. Because if you don't have local and hyperlocal journalism, then of course democracy will die in the local area. So what is happening is that several states have already implemented or are thinking about subsidies, how to subsidize local media. And we made a best practice tour through Scandinavia and had a look how do they organize that in Denmark and how do they organize that in Sweden. And what was interesting was that the subsidies that are given in Denmark and in Sweden are to a large part invested into innovation. That means that they support for a certain time innovative young media that are organizing a new form of talking to the audience. And then you have, for instance, well, a 5-year period where you are financed, and in this 5-year period you have to develop a business model that is sustainable, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I really think that this kind of approach is super helpful to master the digital transformation and also to have sustainable effects on the local and hyperlocal level. So yes, but it is difficult, and we don't have the recipe and the solution for everything. Yeah, what we also can see is the negative side of it. That means that we have news deserts already popping up in Europe, and who's jumping into these news deserts and who's jumping into this vacuum? It's the local elites. It's the mayor. It's, I don't know, the entrepreneurs, the companies that are located in the specific city, right? And what do they publish? They publish probably 2 or 3 pages with an event calendar, and the rest is PR. PR articles about themselves and about their enterprises and so on and so forth. That is really sad, this kind of development, but that's a common European phenomenon. So you can see it everywhere. You can see it in Poland, you can see it in Estonia, and you will see it also in Germany. I'm sure about that. Yeah? So, and of course, we have to find answers to that, because that cannot be the solution.
I would add, for sure, I have nothing to say about European experience, but in the Ukrainian context, I think that maybe consolidating several media working in one region into one outlet would be a solution. Because, you know, in that case, at least administrative cost will be shared, and the audiences will get the information from the small cities, like small towns and villages. But otherwise, when we, for example, have in one oblast, I don't know, 20, 25 media, no one will survive. No one. So maybe this is one of the solutions that could be applied in the Ukrainian context, at least for the time of war and post-war recovery, that journalists from different outlets unite their efforts, staying in their towns and villages and reporting to one outlet and expanding their audiences throughout the region.
Якщо можна, я додам.
If possible, I will add, I just remembered our experience from our another project. We have an advisory service. We received the support from our partners. Our partners turned to us for support in Asia. They can't expect any support from the government, and they were advised by an expert via Zoom or locally. They were listened to, and a consultant and advisor was giving recommendations to them, advice what should be work on, how they should organize their efforts in terms of talent acquisition, HR personnel, where they are weak in financial reporting, why donors are not eager to provide funding, and perhaps advice on how to communicate with the audiences better and more efficiently to get funds from the audience as well. And I believe if we direct funds to support local media, this kind of program would be quite helpful, just to diagnose the problem and then treat it or provide prophylaxis for a client to be healthy or to survive. Or we should understand that should be where we cannot go on working in this kind of format. We need to get transformed. We transform ourselves. Absolutely agree. Regional border media, Rivnenщина, Rivnenский вестник, Людмила Bostrik. There are 60 kilometers to the Belarusian border. The Rivnensk, we got a nuclear plant in Rivne. We cover the Varovsky district with the majority of people, the pensioners, old people with disabilities, with the limited in the physical activities, and quite poor people. The problem is about printed media. I've been asking around, especially those who go to work in Poland, asking, do you have a newspaper there? And 4 or 5 of my people I talked to, no, we haven't seen it. So I was coming here with kind of without any hope. What we are talking about, what we going to talk about if there is no newspaper for Ukrainians in Poland? But my opinion changed when we had a city tour in Krakow. We popped into a cafe to have a coffee, and there was a young guy, Adam, we're journalists, we asked him, he was reading a newspaper, a young guy. He goes to year 10 in Polish school, and he was reading Gazetę Wyborcza, and he told that he fed up with sitting on the phone all the time and sitting on internet. He just went out to go to coffee and to read a newspaper to know what's happening with the elections. That inspired me a lot, because I realized that everything was in order in Poland with both printed media with younger generation, and I know that some will have the same in Ukraine. But my request is, please pay attention to both of soft and hard projects you're suggesting. To a large extent, many of them are not fulfilled because we don't have enough skills and knowledge to write requests for grants. Well, I educated myself and have this experience, but there are some editors who actually gave up. I know some of the newspapers in our Rivne Oblast, they had to stop the subscription services. The only postal provider, they dishonest people, and they are killing newspapers in this way. It's very important to pay attention to printed media. We were researching our audience, readership. Indeed, 60-70% of our readership are pensioners who have still operate button mobile phones. They don't really see their kids or children, and they only get news from somebody telling them that, or from our newspaper. This is the first source of information for them. And because this postal provider is not delivering newspapers, this is letting these people down. We just established a hotline together with the National Union of Journalists to support this category of readership. And these people in our village, they go to our editorial office asking what should they do. There are no newspapers distributed, but they are so obstinate. Even if the postal provider failed to bring them the newspaper, they would go to a shop to buy it there. What could be other more motivation for us to continue working for us? We'll be publishing. We'll continue publishing our newspapers because this our life, just like a carousel. When we're too low down, there's always will be higher point. Last year was very difficult for media people. Great respect to you, to our foreign partners for supporting us. For these whole days of the conference, for the whole conference, we heard different subjects and statements. Also, there were statements we shouldn't really be become like Afghan media. I can assure you that we won't be kind of eating up your grants, and please don't take us as a dishonest friend which takes help and eats up, but treat us as a relative, as a brother whom you help to buy medication to recover and be fully fledged kind of player. Thank you very much, those who support us, regional players, and I hope we'll continue working together and working towards the victory. Thank you.
Доброго дня всім.
Good afternoon, Tatiana Luchinska, Mayak newspaper, town of Bohodukhiv, the Kharkiv region. We also need border territory near the front line and continue the subject raised by my colleagues. I wanted to ask a question, but at the moment I just want to say I've got one copy of a newspaper. It's not colorful because we're published weekly, black and white, and at the end of the month we publish a colorful issue in order to cheer people up. I want to say that indeed your assistance is very important for us, and our newspaper, which in February 2024 will celebrate 94 years of age. Of existence. We managed to survive from the start of the full-scale invasion, thanks to National Union of Journalists and thanks to our donors. The fund was among others who helped us, and thanks to NUG, we also survived. Not only because of funding. The funding is very important too, because we survived because we had this training organized for us, different webinars, seminars. We were shown different methods, and which taught us new ways to bring information to people, to our readers. For example, we issued new iPhone 11s, and now, for example, our small district newspaper, what we do in order to bring the interest to our newspaper and to sustain our readership. We got 1,500 subscribers at the moment, so that means that every third household reads our newspaper. They like it, they subscribe to it. And what we started doing some small reports via TikTok or some other apps for half a minute. Say we tell about our heroes of providing social services, our defenders, and in video we provide this information and say further details read in Mayak newspaper issued on a particular date. And people, when they watch this info with music or supported by text, they are already looking forward to read this in the newspapers. Just wanted to say thank you, that your support is really valuable to us. My colleague told us that we're not eating the grants, the funds. Indeed, we're sitting in the minimal payments. We got literally a couple of people sitting in a editorial office in order to provide for the survival of our newspaper, to be published and to reach our readership. We understand how important we are in this border region, in a frontline region, and people are looking forward to read our newspaper. Thank you.
One remark from Rebecca Harms, please.
Thanks. So I warn a bit against the discussion, especially now in the emergency situation in Ukraine, to make print the most needed thing and the other like what is not necessary or not really achievable, affordable for the people. So right now it's quite clear that you have different situations in Ukraine where you need a different kind of media. And I saw also regions where these printed media have their own reasons, yeah? But if you ignore challenges which will come and which you can see in other countries, you might lose. So if you insist only on the past, then you might really be the losers. In Germany, for example, all print media, also the local media, they are also online. They develop their own online formats. They always go 2 tracks, yeah? If you want to have a future, so you have to go also for the new technologies. And the audience will change. So in 10 years, the audience will be completely different. And the question is also, if they have to pay for something, for what are they going to pay? And then one observation from Ukrainian people now outside of Ukraine. So I'm just following a new project that's called Sestra. It's done by a Ukrainian journalist who worked with journalism, with media in Poland, in Warsaw. And they so Sestra is online, it's Sestra. Sestri, sisters, not sister, but sisters. So it's online media they are addressing. They are trying to speak to Ukrainian women around the world. And what they want is to keep them connected and to motivate them to return, especially with all their good skills, to return to Ukraine. And that's only possible online. So print is not at all what could help. And also online media are nowadays what keeps Ukrainians outside of Ukraine connected to Ukraine. So don't underestimate how important it is also for your local news that you are connected to many, many Ukrainians, even outside of Ukraine. And have a look as women and as women in journalism, have a look on this project, Sestri, because it's really, I think, a very, very good idea for a female journalism made for women.
So much, Rebecca. Now we have to finish that panel. I already got the command from from Denise. I have to ask now. We would like to go into the signing procedure, and first of all, we would like to talk a bit, still 5 minutes, about the mechanism itself. Is that okay? Okay.
If we can just under a few minutes.
A few minutes.
If I have a few minutes, I will be very, very short. I won't take more of your attention. Just to announce that, the Global Forum for Media Development and Lviv Media Forum, we are proud to announce the launch of the Tech and Journalism Crisis and Emergency Mechanism. I think I have a slide over here. And basically developed in collaboration with a coalition of Ukrainian organizations and also international partners and experts. This dedicated platform aims to address account-related incidents and ongoing issues with the prominent tech platforms, providing a lifeline for trusted and verified journalism voices. And the Tech and Journalism Crisis and Emergency Mechanism, or Tech and Journalism Mechanism, just for short, it offers a crucial escalation channel for Ukrainian independent media facing issues with account removal, suspension, or blocking, and mislabeling, the amplification, many other issues. And it was as a response to pressing needs from our Ukrainian members and partners to distinguish and protect professional and trusted local information sources online. And I would say that a coalition of Ukrainian journalism and media support organizations led by the Lviv Media Forum will collaborate to assist media outlets in navigating and escalating this significant moderation incidents with major tech platforms. And yeah, I will give a word to Olga, and she will tell you about the coalition itself.
Thanks, Lisa. We are a proud member of the coalition and a leading partner in Ukraine. I will maybe switch to Ukrainian to make people understand how it works.
So, in response to the numerous blocking of media web pages, especially the news content, we see that some giant social media are blocking some of the media platforms. Therefore, we launched this mechanism. This mechanism allows for quick and effective. It's a mechanism for receiving quick and effective feedback from social media moderators. So it allows for taking quick action in the case of blocking a web page, or in the case of blocking content, or in the case of blocking a post.
in the coalition itself. It's a really important part of the mechanism. So yeah, you on the slide you can see the QR code to the website gfmd.info/tech and journalism mechanism, where if you're interested to submit a case, if you have an issue with prominent tech platforms, we would be really to help. There's a coalition of Ukrainian media organizations that will help you to verify and guide you along the process. And then we have a lot of international partners and experts who will share their knowledge and expertise on how to navigate in this regard. So thank you very much for announcing, for helping us spreading the word. We thank ECPMF for giving us the floor to share shortly about it. And yeah, we will love to have also a photo opportunity after the session. We encourage our Ukrainian colleagues to stay and have a photo with us and to discuss it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for attention.
Now we have less than 30 minutes. Let's get back at 12:15 to the closing panel. Time do we start? 11:45. Okay, okay. So yeah, I just missed the time.
Please. Yeah.
Tradycja. Wyszywanka. Tradycjonalna. Look.
Okay. Okay. Please. But now it's
Where's Olga? Olga.
some workshop on professional ushering of people into the conference hall. Let us begin. Or rather, let us conclude. I would like to welcome you at the summary meeting. We're going to talk to as important people as you are, that is the conference participants. And immediately I would like to say that I have a very important PR type of task from the organizers to get more feedback about the conference. So let us agree that I'm going to be asking questions, and I would ask you to present your feedback on the COVERE Conference. Well, that's obviously joking, but every joke has got a grain of truth. My name is Olga Virsta. I am a representative, one of the co-organizers of this conference, that is the Regional Press Development Institute. And I would like to do a confession, to confess something. All of the workshops and meetings that I have been attending so far were leading to this star-like event, because this is how I could receive more information and find out more information about our co-speakers. So we know Lubov Velichko. We know that with 4 months old children, she went to the mines, and she brought a wonderful report from there, and she's amazing. Kristina Zeleniuk, who works in the TSM team. She is an expert on international affairs, and she just does not agree with all the points of the Atlantic articles. She received a British visa, and now she is also going to apply for an American visa. And Maya Holub, she is a representative of the regional institute, of the Mass Information Institute, and she loves the 7-kilometer runs in Krakow, and also has become a master of Taekwondo. Now she's got the blue belt in Taekwondo. Now, let's begin with a simple thing. Tell me, please, or maybe it's a difficult question, I don't know, but what has the Russian war against Ukraine changed in your professional life, in journalism? Thank you very much for introducing me, Lubov. And now I'm afraid of saying something wrong as I'm looking at my... Listen, the journalist profession is a difficult job anyway, and investigative journalism is even more difficult. But the war has forced me to ask a question: do you really want to be a journalist? How much do you want to be a journalist? So everything what is happening means says that everything's going to be very difficult, incredibly difficult. And in this room today, we have people who are really resilient. You are the people who work under the conditions that you would not have ever envisaged. However, you're still here, you're still working, and I admire these people. I do not work on the front line, but I do respect and I do admire the people who are facing these challenges on an everyday basis as they work in the front line areas. And today in our profession we need to support each other a lot, as never before, like never before, because we have so many challenges to face. We have physical dangers to face, we have ethical challenges to take into consideration, and if we do not act united, if we do not maintain dialogue with each other, we will not be able to survive. Yes, indeed, as far as ethical challenges are concerned, I will have a question about ethical challenges as well. Kristina, over to you. How has your work changed since the beginning of the full-scale invasion? Well, let me begin from a different topic. I would like to welcome all of the participants of this forum, which is drawing to its close, and all of the fruitful discussions that we have had have been very interesting. But all of my journalist professional experience means that I work for central media organizations, and before the full-scale invasion, also before 2014, when we had to do a report on something or whatever topic it would, both the big media organizations would dispatch their reporters from Kiev to the regions. So we would travel and then do our job. But now, since the full-scale invasion, everything has changed. And undoubtedly, we clearly see now that it is the regional journalists who are bearing the burden of speaking and presenting information about the war events. So it is important now to tell the world what is happening in the deoccupied territories and what is happening in the occupied territories. That's very important. So I think that the war it's the big war, the full-scale invasion has changed us all and everything. But I think that ahead of us, we are facing the largest challenge, that is how to deal with the fatigue, because there's the war fatigue that is creeping in the West, and it's developing very rapidly. And of course, everyone has his or her own problems to face, and we are not standing still. Let's have a look at Germany. Germany right now is quite an interesting case for us, a horrible case for us, that the Alternative für Deutschland is now the second largest political party in Germany. But we still have to be active. We need to tell the world what is happening, and we need to keep explaining why Ukraine needs to be supported at all times. That's our objective now. This is what we have to do now. But also, I know that here in this room we have representatives of donor organizations, we have representatives of different organizations that give a possibility to work, give a possibility to Ukrainian journalists to work, and Ukrainian journalists are taking part in fellowship programs. But similar programs are out there for the Russians and for the Belarusians, and that's a problem for me. It's a big problem for me, because as far as the West is concerned, there are large donor organizations, and they need to change their thinking about the way they're financing liberal Russian mass media, because we have to be honest. Are they effective? I have this idea that, in fact, the liberal Russian mass media are working for the Russian diaspora. They are not stopping the regular Russians from going to war and killing Ukrainians. Well, on this note, I would like to give the floor to Maya. I know that Maya has been affected a lot by blackouts, so you could tell us about your experiences. Yes, I would like to share with you my experience, but first and foremost, I would like to say that the Ukrainian journalists have been hardened by the war. I work at the Mass Information Institute, but I'm also a freelance journalist. I have experience of working under blackout conditions when we did not have electricity for 6 or 8 hours, and we had to face that every single day. And as many of you have done that as well, but many times the editor would say, listen, you've got deadline, but there is no electricity, so I had to travel to another district of town to find a place with electricity to be able to write the text. You start writing the text, and then there is air raid, and you have to run away. You cannot sit in the cafe when the air raid is going on. So I had to run to an office of my colleague's office, and then they cut the electricity down there as well. But now I have this type of internet connectivity that allows me to get connected using power banks. So right now, when we have blackouts, I can still work. So we have quite a number of different power banks. One power bank is good enough for the laptop to run for a couple of hours. So just would like to say that you have to learn to do these things, and the war has changed the way we work. All of a sudden, we had to do things that we've never been doing before. For instance, drawing up lists for those journalists who want to receive bulletproof vests. And then those lists of needs for bulletproof vests and helms and for power banks, the list of needs had to be submitted to our colleagues to receive all of that equipment. Also last year, I had that experience of working as a fixer. And all of a sudden, I even worked as an interpreter of the Polish language. I remember last year there was a day when we agreed to meet with the Polish journalists, and we would go to Volhynia together and speak, but then I found out that my interpreter went to Poland and she was supposed to work there at some other event. So all of a sudden I had to act in my capacity as a Polish language interpreter. In any case, I also started running training activities. I was trained as a trainer in Warsaw, and now I'm sharing this experience with my colleagues. Indeed, we also need to talk about our experiences here. Therefore, I would like to ask my fellow participants. Oh, yes, there is a question in the room. Yes, please. Please, could you please pass on the mic? But we will have time later on for some comments and questions as well, once we're done here. Please use the mic. I apologize. So it's simply that we need to go to the bus as we are here. They're bombing Kherson right now as we speak. I'm from Kherson. My city is being shelled right now. I'm from Novy Den editorial. I have 25 years of experience in journalism. Anatoly, my boss, has 40 years of experience in journalism. Prior to the full-scale invasion, we were quite a successful editorial, and we were self-sufficient. We have had very loyal readership, and in fact we were one of the most popular web online editorials in our region. But the war has changed everything, and at some point we understood that we could lose our professions, our jobs. We had to run away. 4 months later, after 3 attempts, I had to leave because I was followed by the Russian FSB. That was scary. And only now, at this meeting, I somehow could think about something else, not only about the war, although of course it's the news that you keep following. 3 days ago, our children's library was bombed by the Russians. It was quite an important library for children in our region, and it was bombed. And every day you receive this type of news, every single day. And it's difficult. But it's important to have this possibility of thinking about something else, not to be out of the war context, not to hear the war on an everyday basis. That's important, and I'm thanking you for that, for this possibility of being here. And I lost my boss finally, a year and a half after the full-scale invasion began. But I finally saw him in person, although we were obviously in touch on the phone every single day. But it's due to the support of our European donors that we could print the first edition of our newspaper. It was delivered to the liberated right bank of the Dnieper River in Kherson, but some places are still under occupation. And when people saw our newspaper, they started crying. They were crying seeing our newspaper. They saw a newspaper printed, a printed press newspaper, which means that there is hope, that everything is going to be okay, we're going to win. And people, as they saw the newspaper, they burst into tears. So speaking about the conditions of our work, indeed the war is very difficult. It was very difficult to work under the occupation. It was difficult to be in the hiding and to keep trying when in hiding, when trying to hide yourself. But I would like to say, it's not about us, but it's about those journalists who are right now in Kherson, and they're working, and right now they're out there, they're doing their job, they go on sites, they risk their lives to do reporting. And there are many journalists who are right now in Kherson. They also need support. They also from time to time need to have this possibility to go out and to take some rest. Thank you very much for your kind support. Many thanks. Yes, thank you.
Yes, exactly. That's why we're here, in order to do networking, to socialize, to talk. I think we got some potential left and some strength. Another thing we would like to discuss, your ethical challenges you are facing, because in our team we've conducted several discussions on ethical and integrity subjects, also with the investigative journalists and aspects added by the war. For example, shall we use Russian database to identify Russian occupiers and perpetrators? How to interact with the Ukrainian military? What's the most difficult issues for you? Shall we start with Christina or Luba? Luba? Well, I would identify 3 issues. One of them has been resolved by us. I think the second one is a work in progress, and the third one is still ahead. First one, shall we write about corruption, whether we should write about corruption during the war? We talked a lot about that during the first months of the war, especially those investigative journalists who do investigations, and talking to colleagues also with foreign colleagues, including the events abroad at Recovery last year. Thank you very much, Luba, for remembering that. I will also put a focus on that, but please share your opinion, share your feedback. And the conclusion was, yes, we should write about corruption, we should report about it, we should share the information. That's exactly what we're doing now. And when for next time I'm hearing this question from our foreign colleagues, are you allowed to write that an official kind of is stealing money? Yes, I say, yes, we can, and they're quite surprised because it's not in every European country they have this freedom of speech for a journalist to write about the corruption by officials, because different media belong to different businessmen. And the other thing we are discussing at this recovery conference, that's a subject of communications and working with those who had this traumatic experience, who lived through tortures, were tortured and lived through the occupation. And naturally we need to understand, to be aware that we could do harm, big harm actually, by our unprofessionalism if we talk to them in a wrong way. And I'm grateful to this conference that we had a special training on that, special session on that. And I believe that all Ukrainian journalists should go through the training like this, how to talk to victims of torture and of violence. Another thing we need to overcome, things how we should report on the subjects of well, I put it this way, how should we talk to Russian prisoners of war? How should we write about their motivation, their families, why they came to Ukraine, whether it's worth doing that, writing about that, reporting about that. So some of the colleagues, quite a lot of our colleagues actually, are recording interviews with Russian POWs and etc. So far I don't see kind of one-sided answer. Definite answer on the way how should we talk to them, which questions are allowed, which are not acceptable or not. I think we should need to discuss that as well. This is to be discussed. Yeah, I think we might have a couple of minutes. Christina, what about you? Yes, I absolutely agree. A friend of mine, he's documenting war crimes together with the General Prosecutor's Office of Ukraine in Kyiv. Not only in Kyiv, they worked all around the Kyiv region, and now they've moved to Kherson and the Kherson region. And literally, I got a message from him yesterday, and he was writing that they had a girl, a victim, 4 years old. And he was saying, I got requests coming from Western journalists to hear her story, but how should I put it to her parents that it's to be shared, that it's necessary to share this experience? Myself, as a journalist with the kind of rich experience, I believe that it's necessary to, I would say that it's necessary to share the stories, but when it's about your country and you are aware that this is a 4-year-old child suffered from these crimes, Russian crimes, and how should we do that in this instance? I believe that this adds to professionalism, adds to our skills and knowledge. How should we communicate with these people? How should we work with these people? Maya? In my opinion, in terms of investigations, I would say that it is necessary to investigate again the Russians in order to provide evidence, to have more evidence of their war crimes and international crimes. From time to time, I'm approached by journalists asking for advice in terms of changes